Hey everyone, welcome to the channel where we love to talk about movies. Today we're going to review Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I saw this a few days ago in theaters. I think it was actually 4 days ago now. But getting around to my review for it, and yeah, just wanted to dive on in and share my thoughts on this film. So this will be a spoiler review. I just like talking in detail. A lot of a lot of my thoughts on the film do. It's not super spoilery, like I mean, there's maybe a few things you could spoil, but anyway, if you don't want any spoilers, go see it and then come back and or don't go see it. I guess my final take on the film is that I'm giving it a letter grade of a C, which means I don't really recommend it one way or the other. It was just fine. So if you want to see it first though before hearing anything, go do that and then maybe come back to this review. So let's dive on in. In this film, it continues the story of teenage Billy Batson, who, upon reciting the magic word Shazam, is transformed into his adult superhero alter ego Shazam. So yeah, as I said, this film was just to see. It is upsetting a little bit. I was looking forward to this one. I did see it in Dolby, and that part of it was really good. There was a lot, like it was really loud noise. You could definitely feel the seat shaking a lot of times and things like that. But I really liked the first one. I think that one I wasn't really doing reviews in necessarily a letter system back then, but it was probably like an A. I did really like it. I thought it was a very heartfelt superhero film. And I was excited for the sequel, even though they're kind of rebooting the DC, and I don't really know exactly what's going on with that. It, like, what should matter, like, I'm excited to see any movie, especially if it's a sequel to one that I've already liked. But I don't know if, like, I know that this movie bombed at the box office. I don't know if there's less interest given that they're rebooting DC and it's like, oh, this doesn't play into the bigger universe. But I feel like studios, that really shouldn't be a thing. If it's a good movie, it doesn't need to play into the bigger universe. And I do think that at times, especially Marvel now, is more worried about fitting into the bigger universe instead of just creating a good standalone movie. So yeah, I don't know. That's anyway kind of a little bit of a ramble on the state of superhero films in general right now. And this one I don't think is helping because I personally didn't really care for it. It's yeah, and I think that starts mainly with the main character. So I think in the last movie Zachary Levi was great. He was playing like that in that movie. Billy gets his powers for the first time, and he's this, I think, like 13 or 14-year-old kid who then can transform into an adult, and that, I think, Zachary Levi played great as this kid who's in an adult body for the first time, and kind of a younger kid, 13, 14, still has a good amount to develop as a person. I mean, you still do, and like you grow as a person throughout all of your life, but definitely a bit more immature there. This movie takes place a few years later, and Billy's 17. I think people grow a lot between 13 and 17, and they can definitely mature, and I felt like Billy, played by the younger actor when he's in his 17-year-old form, feels like a 17-year-old, and that he's done some growing since he was 14. Zachary Levi, I feel like Zachary Levi is not playing that character trapped inside the Zachary Levi adult body. And I think he's still channeling that inner like 13-year-old, still fairly immature, still like playing it as a novel thing that he's got an adult body. Like he's been Shazam for 3 years now. It shouldn't be a big deal to like be an adult. And I feel like living in an adult body would also, I think, force you to mature a little bit faster. So I just felt that there was a disconnect, and I didn't wholly buy into Zachary Levi's performance, or at least I felt like he was playing the character maybe not, yeah, I don't know. I think he's probably playing it how he's shooting for, but that like version of the character didn't really make sense to me personally. So that's a very personal critique. I don't mean anything like, yeah, technically on the acting necessarily. And yeah, I mean, I think he did a good job for what he's probably trying to go for. I just didn't think it was maybe the best thing for this movie or made the most sense what he was going for. I thought the villains were pretty bland in this film. I mean, it was, yeah, they had differing opinions, but like their motivation to be bad to begin with felt kind of weak, and it was the typical like, oh, humanity's done some bad things, let's wipe out humanity. Um, yeah, so I didn't really care for the villains all that much. They weren't all that interesting, and it sucks because it was great to see some like women in the lead roles, and but then for them to not be done well doesn't really do anything for that. So yeah, wanted to like them more, but I just didn't think they were all that interesting. I thought the design of the mythical creatures was kind of interesting. It felt very 90s just with like the design and the look, which may appeal to some, but I personally didn't really like the design of like yeah, all like the I don't know, all the creatures that kind of spawn from the tree that they planted. It was okay. It's just like thematically and design wise it didn't fully work for me. I thought the beginning of the film was really boring and pretty generic. Like, oh, we've been away from these, let's just jump right back in with them, saving a bridge from collapsing. But then we're gonna then have the media kind of bash them and downplay them and not be excited about them being superheroes because that feels kind of novel. But I'm like, they actually did a pretty good job, but it was also I don't know, it felt just very routine for an opening of a sequel superhero movie. I thought I didn't really care for the comedy all that much in this film. There was some humorous things, but I don't know. It felt like lower level comedy directed more for kids, which is fine. I think that's probably the demographic that's gonna like this movie the most. I think it's a good family film. I think you can have family films that do deal with like kind of deeper stuff and aren't as surface level as this film. And yeah, but it at least I think it wasn't necessarily bad. Like I've seen some kids films where I just disagree with kind of the messaging that the film has. That was not the case with this one. I think it was just not that deep of a film, which again is fine. It's just a fun little action film that, kids are probably going to like. So overall, yeah, I just kind of found the film boring, but it's probably not directly targeted at me. But that was also a disappointment because I did like the first one. So yeah, it didn't really feel all that fresh. It felt like a pretty generic factory-made sequel to a superhero film. There's also really no consequences. Like Billy dies and then he's immediately brought back. Like we had like 2 minutes of him being dead. So you don't even have like time between films. Like sometimes you'll get that where they'll bring him back like Superman and in the Batman v Superman going into Justice League. Like that I think has a bit more impact. But when you bring him back in the same movie, it feels like it doesn't have any weight to it. And yeah, I think it just needs to be better in a day and age when we get so much superhero content. So it is, I think, maybe I would enjoy this a lot more if it was kind of made in a vacuum, but it's not, and it's really difficult to strip away the context of the kind of environment that it's being released into with, multiple films, superhero films each year. So I thought the post-credit scenes were also pretty dumb. I think they were like, oh, come back and like we're gonna do some cool stuff with this character. Which, like, A, they don't tell you enough to really get interested unless you maybe have read the comics and you know what's going on, which I haven't, so I was just kind of confused. But then, I don't know, it also felt like they were trying really hard to set up something interesting down the road, which feels just kind of, I don't know, it feels wrong to promise something interesting when I felt like this movie didn't do anything interesting. I think it's great to have a great film and then promise interesting stuff down the road, but when the most kind of interesting thing is what the credit scene is promising, I don't think that's a very good movie. So that, yeah, they just kind of felt that way watching through those. Yeah, but the other things, I thought the Rachel Zegler character, I forget her name, but she did not, like, she was like, oh, I'm thousands of years old, yeah, you're probably not going to go out with me. But she was playing, like, I don't know, when we first meet her, she comes across as a teenager who's kind of infatuated with this boy, and I didn't really buy that she was thousands of years old. And I feel like she didn't feel like an old soul. So, like, yeah, I don't know. It's things like that I just felt could have been done better in the film. There were some things I liked. I definitely liked Steve in the library. The pen was great. I liked the bit where he just wrote everything they said, and then they didn't proofread the letter and they just sent it, and then the Helen Mirren character read it out. I thought that was pretty funny, and I thought the library looked pretty cool. The design there was well done, but that was it for what stood out to me. I didn't really like the design of the big bad dragon. That just felt kind of over the top and not interesting at this point. I also felt like the characters weren't really all that smart, and I don't know, things like made you look like this kid. This is seven. Like, are people? I don't think kids are really doing made you look at 17 and thinking it's funny. Like that's, yeah. I just felt like these were not the character. There was a disconnect in the characters, and they felt kind of in two pieces. But and I felt like they weren't the most smart in their decisions. Granted, I probably wouldn't be either if I was thrown into a whirlwind of stuff to have to deal with like that. But I don't know. You can have kids that don't come across as not all that smart. Like Stranger Things, I think shows that. Like I don't feel like those kids are less intelligent than the adults that they're standing next to, but it definitely felt the case in this movie. And then I don't know, I wasn't really impressed with the Wonder Woman cameo either. I felt like that was kind of forced in there, and it didn't add much to the movie for me personally. But yeah, so this one wasn't like hard to sit through. It didn't have me wanting to leave the theater, but it was kind of boring overall, and a little bit felt like a waste of time just because I don't know, it was a little bit busier of a week. I think that kind of shaped it, so that's why I didn't. Although it did feel a little bit like a waste of time, I didn't put it into the D category, which sometimes movies might do that. But those are my thoughts, though, on Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I wish I had liked it better. I wish it was a better film. But that's how it hit for me. So hopefully you liked it better, though, if you've seen it. I know some people really liked it. It's somehow at like 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. I did not think it was fresh, but hey, I'm just one person, and I hope people like it better than me. But if you've had a chance to see it, though, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Was it just kind of meh for you as well, or did you actually like it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe. And with that, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.